This year has been a difficult year, and as Christians, we've taken great comfort in knowing that God is with us in everything that's happened and continues to be with us as we move into the Christmas season and then into the new year. And of course, the word Emmanuel, which we see so often written on our Christmas cards and sing in our Christmas carols, means God with us. And so as Christmas approaches, we prepare to celebrate the mystery of the incarnation, that in Jesus, God took on human form and lived amongst us as one of us. Today's gospel reading comes from the book of Luke, and it's Luke chapter 1, verses 26 to 38. It's the story of the Annunciation, at the time when the angel Gabriel comes to Mary to tell her that she's to become pregnant and will give birth to Jesus, and that her cousin Elizabeth has also conceived a son. And Mary, of course, is a little perplexed, initially wondering how on earth this could have happened. But she moves from a place of confusion and uncertainty to one of trust and surrender. When the angel Gabriel came to see Mary to tell her that she was to give birth to the Son of God, he began with a greeting, just like we do when we bump into one another on the street or we go to visit people. Although his words were very different to anything that we might say. As these were his words: "Greetings, favoured one, the Lord is with you." And then, of course, he goes on to tell her that she's to become pregnant and give birth to the Son of God. So before Mary was asked to do anything at all, she was reminded of two things. Firstly, that she was favoured. And secondly, that God was with her. I wonder what that meant to Mary to hear those words, "Greetings, favoured one." A sense that she was special. A sense perhaps of being chosen, of being loved by God. Yet when we dig a little deeper, we discover that there was nothing extraordinary about Mary. She wasn't a princess or daughter of an earl, but an ordinary teenage girl, betrothed to a carpenter named Joseph. And they lived in the little town of Nazareth, in an unimportant province of the Roman Empire. And so in Mary, we have a very ordinary person asked by God to do something extraordinary. In choosing Mary to be the mother of Jesus, we see God choosing the lowly rather than the high and mighty to work out his plan of redemption. It's interesting that this word favour, used by Gabriel in his greeting, when it was translated from the Greek, could equally well be translated as grace. So Mary is the recipient of God's grace. She hasn't earned the privilege of being chosen to be mother of God's Son more than anybody else. And doesn't that echo with all that we know about God's grace? That it doesn't have to be earned, but is freely given to each one of us. God's unconditional love, freely available for all. And then the second part of that greeting, the Lord is with you. An affirmation that God was present with her in that moment and would continue to be present, that he would equip and strengthen her to do all that she would be asked to do. Preparation for what was to come. God is with us is the presidential theme of the Methodist Church this year. And people have been sharing stories of how God has been with them. And for each day of Advent, there is a different story. And I'd encourage you to go onto the Methodist website to have a look and to listen to some of those stories because they're really encouraging. But we're just going to take a little look now at the introduction.
Even when we're isolated,
when we're grieving, when we're struggling,
when we have hit rock bottom,
we're never alone.
This year has been unbelievable.
But we have pulled together.
We've worked hard to care for people,
To feed people, to help people, to heal people.
And we've said loud and clear that people matter more.
that injustice is unacceptable.
That our community is vital.
Our buildings have been closed.
But we have been at work.
God's love is uncontainable.
In times of despair.
And in times of hope.
You are loved.
This Christmas and always, whoever you are,
And whatever you have been through this year,
God is with you.
God
is with me.
God is with us.
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 I was particularly touched by Sophie's story. Sophie works as a music therapist in an MHR care home in London, supporting people living with dementia. She advises carers about how they might use music to support residents in their daily activities and care, and runs group sessions to help people to socialise and share memories through song and conversation. Sophie speaks movingly of how COVID hit the care sector hard, and how she was able to offer support to those suffering from isolation, anxiety, and fear. And she speaks of how God was alongside her and alongside the residents and the staff, and of how she powerfully encounters God through music and through music therapy. And in this way, she was able to help the residents to feel that God was with them too. And Sophie says, at our darkest, most distressing moments, God is with us. Perhaps the knowledge that God would be with her helped Mary to respond in the way that she did, with humble obedience, even though she must have wondered what on earth the future would hold. She knew that it wasn't hers to face alone. And Mary calls herself the servant of the Lord, recognizing that she has been chosen by God, that she's part of God's bigger plan for the salvation of the people of God. And then the words, let it be to me according to your word, are a definite yes to surrendering to God's will. Now, some people might talk of this as being a passive surrender, but it takes courage to follow God's call, to step out of our comfort zones, and it shows commitment to God. And so I wonder what God is calling each of us to in the coming days. Will we be like Mary and be prepared to step into the unknown, trusting in God's promise to be with us always? Will we be able to trust in God as God trusts in us? And so whatever lies ahead for each one of us, may we know, like Mary, that God is with us.